Hi everyone and welcome back. This is Sky coming on today to film a nice impromptu 2025 mid-year update video for you. I thought this might be a good time to come on and cover this because we have come a little bit past the halfway point of the calendar year, though we have not quite gotten to the equinox, so we're right between the midpoint of the calendar year and then the astrological year. So yeah, I think that this is a great time to talk about where we're at and get some intuitive insights about, getting halfway through 2025. In the description box below, I will link the 2025 year ahead video where I've gone into each sign for the year of 2025, and it would be a great time to check back with that if you would like. So you can find that below, as well as some other links to this channel. But yeah, let's talk about where we're at with entering Virgo season of 2025. So this is a tangible paradigm shift now. Things are not just on their last leg anymore. We are actually seeing a material movement toward some degree of finality. So as we were leaving 2024 and moving into 2025, we had a lot of ideas and visions about how we were going to complete certain chapters of our lives. I think that we had a lot of motivation about how to dress certain things up in our life better, about how to be more prosperous, about how to be more resourceful. And all of that will now begin to culminate, and there is going to be a result, okay? I already talked on Patreon this week in the T-Chat 272 about how this is a time of results, and with these results that we're getting now, we can make truly transformative healing decisions, knowing where things actually lay. So I feel that as we were moving through the first half of 2025, it seemed like there was a lot of abstract, kind of trance-like almost vision about what we wanted our lives to be instead. Okay, there's been a very strong feeling of like, there's this thing over here, there's this new relationship, or there's this person somewhere out there, or there's this other place or dream or plan or income or something that is going to fix me or help my situation. So there's this like dream orientation, right, with the 2025 year cycle, with the North Node being in Pisces. There's this craving for a different way, or this sort of almost like meditative state that a lot of people are in about how they see themselves, how they see their future, how they see, any type of bridge that they're crossing is also the dragon and snake year element. 2024, 2025 are very much about bridge creation. So creating connection between two different places. So this could definitely mean like moving, crossing borders, leaving some type of territory, entering a new one. This is very much something that we're going through here at not just a physical level, but at sort of like a time level. Okay, so we're definitely changing times. We're changing eras here. There's a lot of succession of events, okay? A lot of people changing places, a lot of passing of baton, and transference of energy, which is really going to increase as we step into the second half of the year and Saturn and Neptune prepare to go back into Pisces, okay? So I wanted to also come on and prepare you all for that. As I'm filming this video, it's the 18th of August, and we've still got a few weeks before Saturn and Neptune go back into Pisces, and we get that not just anaretic energy, but zodiacal anaretic energy, right? Not just the final degree of a sign, but the final degree of the zodiac, right? 29 Pisces. We are about to retrograde back into that, and it's going to really supercharge our lives with the energy of finality and with the energy of not just endings and beginnings, right? The cusp of Pisces and Aries, but almost like just an ultimate sense of that. Okay, so we know so much that these long-term involvements that we've had, or these long-term plans or long-running circumstances that we've been involved in are about to be faced in a precise way that we've never been able to face them before. And as I was talking about on my Patreon page quite in depth this week, What we're seeing is we have to really get to the heart of the matter, and we can't get stuck on the periphery. So we can't get stuck on things that really aren't that important. We can't get stuck in pomp and circumstance. We can't get stuck in sort of the outer layers of any problem because of the transformative nature of the oncoming year. Okay, so like when we transition again from Pisces to Aries in March of 2026, the degree of transformative zest that is there is going to demand that we really got to the heart of any issues that we've been having for all our lives. Okay, this period of time, you all, the second half of the 2025 year cycle is very much about, gosh, I've struggled with this for all my life. I've had, poverty for all my life. I've had, a generational curse. I've had, a dysfunctional family. I've had some kind of like chronic illness or something. I have these long running conditions that seem to almost be fated aspects of our incarnation or of our life cycle. These things are going to start coming up, you all. And they're coming up really to be healed and resolved. So yeah, is it an important time for prayer? I would say so, because this is a window of time where you can have a very potent long-term transformation. It really is a time where miracles will be happening for people who can really get to the heart of the issue, and also, I want to say, like, sacrifice certain negative elements of their lives. So like addictions, that's very much a big part of the Aries and Pisces cusp. Escapism, addictive tendencies, irreality, okay, rose-colored glasses, like the moon archetype in the tarot. That's something that we really have to work on here if we feel that we're struggling with that at all. And one of the wonderful things about stepping into the second half of 2025 is that Virgo season. After we had Mars in Virgo, we have the South Node in Virgo. There's going to be this kind of supercharged energy, and again, having eclipse season also in Virgo this year with the nodal axis there. There's going to be this ability to really contain things. Okay, so making sure that things are in the appropriate container, making sure that things are organized and planned properly, making sure that things are accounted for, and that we know the true value of things. There should have been a lot of progress made for people in 2025 so far with getting the feel for how things truly are, knowing in black and white what the situation or circumstance is, and not needing to romanticize it. That's one of the dangers of this year, is like romanticizing a bad situation, romanticizing a dysfunctional relationship, and sometimes not getting away from the right things. So like maybe we escape through some type of addiction, or we escape through some type of coping mechanism, and we remain in bad circumstances and implement negative escapism. That may need to be flipped around for some people, where instead they actually get away from what's negative so that they no longer have to implement or institute negative escapism. So there's kind of a world shift for a lot of people. There's kind of what I call like a turning of tables, or some people have to get into this very kind of like dramatic place where it's like everything I thought that I needed or everything that I was attached to has to go, so that I can actually go from this thing that is making me attracted to these not so good things, okay? So, chain of events, sequential thinking, the sequence of negative outcomes is something that is interesting to think about here. For example, okay, if I overwork myself, even though some people might argue that yields me more money or it yields me more respect because I'm overworking myself to death, I also understand that that's going to burn me out. And there's a sequence, right? If I overwork, I will probably need to overrest later. Okay? Equal and opposite reactions. You see people with coming out of these last few paradigms, like these last few years, really ever since like 2021, okay, 2022, there's been a lot of like, if I just push a little bit harder, or if I just do this like dramatic or grand thing, then I'm going to really turn the momentum and I'm going to get a much more favorable outcome. That may be true. Yes, you may earn more money if you work harder. You may, You get better results in the gym if you lift heavier weights, okay? But you'll also have a tendency to burn out more, and you'll have more damage also to the body, or more soreness, or more lactic acid buildup. So there's never... Is there ever really a margin in life? You start to ask yourself. If I just work harder to need to recover more, was that ever worth doing? And this was something that the 2025 year cycle was already really working on. And we've been talking about, the quicksilver movements, the need to be light like a feather, the need to have flexibility, adaptability, covering a distance in a way that's not so clumsy and is more aerodynamic. This has been one of the most important things that we can cultivate here. But, it's already kind of making it so unattractive to do the big, bulky, kind of grandiose movements, or having huge things that are kind of unwieldy. This is already very unattractive here, and people's groupthink, or I feel like a groupthink consciousness, is already kind of leaning more towards what's easier. It's okay, a more minimalist style, or a lighter fabric, or, things all on one smartphone instead of a bunch of computers, or a bunch of paperwork filed away or something. It's all on this one external drive, or it's all on this one smartphone, or, all in this one house. I can do everything. I've got my gym, I've got my office, I've got, my bedroom, I've got, friends and family here. And it's everything is encompassed in this space, rather than having to drive 20 minutes to the gym, or drive an hour to the office, or commute or whatever. So there's been a lot of efficiency focus, right? Already in 2025, and in some ways that has been good, and in other ways that has obviously done damage, because there's a lot of experimentation with a different track and a lot of movement toward how things could be different. And, there's this kind of empire mentality too, that we've really had to be careful about in 2025, because it's so easy to be overextended. And the thing about overextension, and the point that I'm trying to make, is that there's always a recovery quotient. So if you overextend, you have to recover. And a lot of people forget the fallout of certain choices. And this is, again, about sequential mindsets and sequential thinking, order of events, cause and effect. If I overdo myself, do I have the time to rest to justify that? If not, where is anything going to give? Something has to give somewhere. If you are a workaholic and you're also dealing with your family, or you're, working and going to school or something, something has to give somewhere. Either you've got to pay people to help delegate other things, or maybe your health has to take a hit in order to manage all of this. And we have to really ask ourselves, can I pay the price to accomplish this? What is the cost of doing this so fast, or having this kind of leverage, or, having so many different things going on at once? And, some people can afford it. In some cases, it's just a matter of spending money. But then also you ask yourself, is that worth it? For some people it is, and for some people it's not. But what we for sure don't want to see is a capsizing, or a sinking, or some kind of dislocation because one pushed too hard. There were quite a few psychic images coming up in a lot of the August Patreon content about walking through a narrow passage with one small flame. And you've got to protect this. Maybe you don't have any more matches. Maybe there's no way to reignite this if this goes out. So you have to have a very loving, protective touch during this time, and at the same time, quite a quicksilver light movement. We don't want to be clumsy. We don't want to trip and fall here. We don't want to move so boorishly that we put this flame out. Okay, so yes, it takes about a lot of poise here. It takes a lot of care, right? We've got this Jupiter in Cancer. We're building up to have beautiful water trines in Scorpio season, where a lot of people will fix about 70 different problems in their life and no longer have certain issues, and just flow into a much more abundant, capable, resourceful chapter of their life. But, that sequence is being generated here, and that sequence gets us to that point through, yes, sacrificing certain negative coping mechanisms, through doing what counts and not getting caught up on what doesn't matter. And I'm seeing this be probably the hardest thing for most people during this time is, wow, I've got something essential to do, like life or death importance, but I'm like stuck on some like relationship that's not working out, or a lot of my time is going to some kind of like addictive or escapist mechanism that means nothing to any of this. So this is the area I think that's most important to do a little bit of energetic work as we're hitting this half point, this midpoint in the 2025 year cycle is, what is consuming too much of my energy? There's an all-consuming feeling here to anything that's not good for us, okay? Or also even just certain trials will have a very all-consuming feeling. And so we have a very maze-like structure to the quantum field right now. And, there's a lot of like moving through different kind of passages, and we don't really know where things are taking us. So like that's a part of this energy anyway. And that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of endurance. It takes a lot of stamina. So if we have things that are like unnecessarily complicated, or things that, we don't even have to deal with, but for some reason we're engaging it. Also, this can look like doing work you don't have to do anymore, refusing to delegate things and doing things that someone else could very easily do much easier than you, doing everything DIY. Okay. Also having unnecessary conflicts with people, having any kind also of unnecessary bills, okay, paying for things that you don't need, okay, any of this kind of stuff is antithetical to the kind of quicksilver, flexibility, light like a feather orientation that the 2025 year cycle is teaching us about. And not everyone's there. Not everyone has gotten there, and that's fine. Don't worry if you still feel like some things in your life are still heavy or unwieldy. Really what we have in 2025 is a sort of like an exposure. This could be a lot lighter. This could be a little bit different. And some people are already there and some people are not. And don't like freak yourself out if you're not there. But try to see all of the opportunities that are being laid out for you here to lighten things down, to be more efficient, to sometimes knock off quite a bit of excess. So excess weight, excess spending, excess worrying, okay? Excess sleeplessness. Yeah, there are so many rewards for people who have the ability to do this now, or to begin to do this, because you start to get so much of your time back, and you start to also be healthier, okay? Because again, the most difficult element, or one of the most difficult elements of this year, is having an all-consuming feeling. Like, this job takes everything from me and it barely pays my bills. Or, this system that I'm in, or this infrastructure, it's totally like consuming all of my time. Or this one person, this one person that I have like a crush on, or, who I kind of want to break up with, but I can't do it. Like, I just spend all my time thinking about them, or thinking about where things are going with us. Like, these are the challenges of this year. And we want to really, really work hard to not give anything that isn't a life or death, or just super important to our self-actualization grid kind of thing. Anything outside of that really doesn't need or doesn't deserve a lot of our attention. And I will remind you guys, attention, time, focus are probably the most valuable things here. And definitely ask yourself here about anything that you're putting a lot of your attention, focus, time into. Do they deserve this? And is this good for me? Like, in the long term, if I looked back a few years from now and thought, how do I feel about having, maybe a year or 2 years with so much time and energy having gone to that person, that event, that job, whatever it is, all of these things, whichever. It's really nice to have these kinds of check-ins here and to compartmentalize appropriately based on what we know from our spirit, and to pull back. These are not even sometimes extremes that we need to resort to. It doesn't have to be like 0 or 100, but we want to really pull back from things if we feel, and you just know it. You know it when something consumes a little bit too much, and then it touches and hinges on a deeper issue in us, right? Like, why do I feel compelled to give that my time and attention? Why do I feel like that person needs to like occupy this type of space in my life or space in my mind. And that's about us. That's not about them. Like why that's happening. So the other key is to not get hung up on these people, these jobs, these events themselves, but to ask, why do I feel the need to connect to these things and think about these things in the way that I currently am? And I think that that's about some of the best shadow work we can be doing during this time, because that's really where all of the mechanisms are functioning from, is this, like, why do I do this? Why do I feel that this is where my energy needs to go? And there's a lot that can be hiding there, you all, and that may require time and healing in order to work through, because we're going to see a lot of things that have to do with emergency coping. We're going to see a lot of things that also have to do with being too scared sometimes to embark what we actually need to embark. Therefore, it's quite good for us to be occupied with something kind of unconscious, right? You know, to justify not moving toward what we really need to move toward. And it's going to ask us a lot of questions about our own self-confidence, and also about how supported we feel by, like, God or the universe. There's a very spiritual tone too, right, with the Virgo Pisces axis. Do I trust that God has my back? Do I trust that if I embark a path that I'm not totally in control of, that I'll be okay? Or am I a little too worried to do that? And would it be better to just get occupied with something that's a little bit more within the realm of comfort for me? You know, comfort versus a discomfort. And understanding whether that is a smart decision-making process, which for some people it is. For some people, discomfort is a sign that, you know, we don't need to push that, right? Because pain is a sign that it's a good sense that, you know, we don't need to push past whatever limit caused that pain. However, also if we're talking just pure psychological discomfort because maybe of a trauma, we may need to push that a little bit because we may need to overcome that trauma in the first place. So this is about parsing fine detail, moving towards Virgo season, halfway point of 2025 year cycle. And it's about pushing through psychological discomfort, but also pulling back on other kinds of discomfort and knowing which one needs push and which one needs pull. So this is very fine spiritual detail work, you all. And this is also in some ways very obvious, okay? Like, oh no, this stress injury hurts. I should probably quit doing that activity or let that heal. Or, well, you know, it's always been so uncomfortable for me to actually give of myself to a partnership. Maybe I need to push and like give more to this, you know? So it's kind of obvious stuff like this too. Like, don't worry about this being some kind of like hidden, esoteric, you know, worrisome, like I can't figure out if this is a positive or negative discomfort. Like, just try to like be honest with yourself, as honesty will be one of the most powerful tools for us as we go through this time. So, and as we go through this final retrograde of Saturn and Neptune back to Pisces, and we also have Uranus go back, and we have some very, very crucial unfinished business and very crucial core issues that we need to get to the heart of. We have to know where things are, and we have to be very honest with ourselves about that in order to make the right decisions. So yes, everyone, on my Patreon page, I have got all of the August sign by signs. I've got a great bunch of premium content over there. I will link it below. And do subscribe to this channel, as I will be putting out September comprehensive astrology as well as more content. And thank you all so much for being here. I hope that this video helped you. Give me a thumbs up and a like below, and comment. Let me know what you thought of the content, and happy midpoint of 2025. We are getting through it, you all. Much love. Bye.